The US Army spent tens of millions of dollars trying to solve a problem that most of us face every single day. Not a tactical problem, not a weapons problem. The problem of human hesitation. Why do people know what they need to do and still don't do it? The answer came from decades of classified research, military psychology experiments, and one very uncomfortable truth about how the human mind actually works. If you're interested in productivity, beating procrastination, and finally closing the gap between knowing and doing, stay with me. The CIA program most people don't know about. In 1953, the CIA launched a covert program called MK Ultra. The budget was enormous, roughly $90 million in today's money. The goal? To find a way to create a human being who would follow any command, to suppress individual will, eliminate fear and personal preference, and essentially turn a person into a programmable machine. They ran experiments across more than 80 institutions, hospitals, prisons, universities, and critically, many participants had no idea they were part of any experiment at all. The methods used were extreme: hypnosis, electroshock, LSD, sensory deprivation, drug-induced states, meditation techniques. In 1973, the CIA director allegedly ordered all records destroyed. Most were burned, but around 20,000 pages survived. They were eventually declassified. And what did those pages reveal? There is no reliable method to completely suppress the human will. You cannot turn a person into a robot. Fear cannot be switched off like a light. But, and this is where it gets interesting, that failure led scientists to ask a much better question. What if the goal isn't to eliminate fear? What if the goal is simply to make sure fear is no longer the primary driver of behavior? The Navy SEALs problem. Fast forward to the 1980s. The US Navy was facing a serious issue with its elite SEAL training program, one of the most physically demanding selection programs in the world. Only 25% of recruits were making it through. The other 75% weren't being kicked out. They were voluntarily quitting. Military psychologists were brought in to figure out why. And what they found was surprising. The people who finished and the people who quit were almost identical in physical fitness and endurance. The difference wasn't in their bodies, it was in their minds. This led to the development of a specific mental training program. And when it was introduced, completion rates jumped by 6 percentage points, which in elite military selection is a significant shift. What was in that program? 4 techniques, and they work just as well in everyday life as they do in combat training. The 4 techniques. Technique 1. Micro goals. When you're facing something overwhelming, your brain does something unhelpful. It calculates the entire cost of the task all at once. The result is paralysis. The fix is simple but powerful. Shrink your focus to the smallest possible next action. In training, a soldier doesn't think, "I have 20 miles left." He thinks, "I just need to make it to that tree." Then the next tree, then the next. In your life, this might look like you have a report to write, something you've been avoiding for days. Instead of thinking about the whole thing, you tell yourself, "I'm just going to open the document. That's it. That's the only task. Then I'll read the first section, then I'll write 1 sentence." This isn't a trick. This is how the brain actually manages threat perception. By narrowing the focus, you prevent your mind from generating the dread that causes avoidance. Technique 2. Mental rehearsal. This one is used in psychotherapy under the name imaginal exposure, and it's also standard practice in elite sports and aviation. The idea: if a situation carries a lot of fear or anxiety, don't avoid thinking about it. Instead, walk through it slowly in your imagination in as much detail as possible. Picture the environment. Picture yourself taking each step. Picture what other people are doing. Notice the feelings that come up and stay with them rather than pulling away. Gymnasts and acrobats do this before a performance, running through every movement mentally dozens of times. Fighter pilots use it to rehearse emergency procedures until the sequence feels automatic. The mechanism is straightforward. Familiarity reduces fear. The more times your brain has experienced a situation, even in imagination, the less threatening it registers as real. Technique 3. Positive self-talk. We all have an ongoing internal conversation with ourselves. Most of us just never pay attention to what it's actually saying. That inner voice can be critical, catastrophizing, dismissive, or it can be supportive and grounding. Important clarification. This is not about affirmations. You don't need to tell yourself you're amazing or that everything is perfect. This is about specific situational self-support. I can handle this. I've done hard things before. One step at a time. Let's go. That's it. Simple, direct, honest. Used by athletes before competition. Used by soldiers before operations. And backed by solid research. Positive self-talk actively blocks the fear and resistance response in the brain. The voice in your head is talking anyway. You might as well make it work for you. Technique 4. Box breathing, 4x4. This one requires no mental effort at all. Just your breath. The pattern. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Repeat for 4 minutes. This technique is used by Navy SEALs before high-stress operations. It's also used by surgeons, first responders, and competitive athletes. The science is clear. Controlled breathing directly regulates the autonomic nervous system, shifting you from fight or flight into a calmer, more functional state. A variation I personally use is pitcher breathing. Inhale in 3 stages, filling from the bottom of the lungs upward, like a pitcher being filled with water from the bottom. Then, exhale in reverse, emptying from the top down, finishing by pushing the last air out from the lower belly. Try it right now. 4 minutes. It works faster than most people expect. The most common mistake. People read about these 4 techniques and try 1 or 2 of them randomly when they remember. That's not how they were designed. These 4 techniques work as a system. They were developed together and validated together. Using them in isolation is like taking one leg off a chair and wondering why it falls over. The full sequence. Break the task into micro steps. Manage the overwhelming scale. Rehearse it mentally. Reduce fear through familiarity. Support yourself with honest inner dialogue. Block resistance. Regulate your nervous system with breath. Create the physical state where action is possible. What's really going on? Here's the deeper insight underneath all of this. Fear is not a fact. It's an interpretation. Your brain has an internal system. Call it the interpreter that scans situations and decides, is this a threat? The problem is that this interpreter can be wrong. It can trigger fear in response to things that aren't actually dangerous. In those moments, you're not responding to reality. You're responding to a kind of mental hallucination. The good news, an interpreter can be recalibrated. That's what these techniques do. They don't suppress fear. They retrain the system that generates it so that over time you see situations more clearly, respond more accurately, and spend less energy fighting yourself. You already know what you need to do. Now you have the tools to actually do it. Like and subscribe.